Do you want to turn on your mic possibly? I think. Oh, I think I hear you.
Do you have me?
I do. Do you see me?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Oh,
We made it work.
nice. And we're actually, it says live on air, right?
Yeah, I think it's recording and everything.
Nice.
So I guess we can get started for the most part.
Sounds good.
I guess, would you like to start talking about the grammar point, or would you like me to discuss the information we'll be talking about, the student sample?
I can start with some of the grammar points. So we're focusing on nouns and pronouns this week, correct? And um, Pulse discusses in detail the count and non-count count and non-count nouns, and some of the trouble that ELs have with how many versus how much, um, when you need to use an article before a noun. And so as we go through, Karen's student sample will look for the articles in front of nouns and some of those, many versus much and a few versus a little, and just look to see if she's having any of those common mistakes that ELs are having.
Mm-hmm. If you... Yeah, so I guess to give a little more background on Karen, since we both share her,
Mm-hmm.
as well. She is a first-year English language learner, and she's developing at a quick rate, though, according to Melanie and things. I know in my literacy class how I support her is we do a lot of Spanish books for her to read and work on comprehension skills. And she's very advanced as a Spanish speaker. And she can write in Spanish and communicates herself very well in Spanish. And we use students to help translate and things so she doesn't have to focus on, forming the right sentences. So she's able to just express her views. And the first, I guess, the longer one student piece, I guess, that we have where she is talking about herself
Mm-hmm.
is actually a sample where she was able to plan and edit her work in Spanish first.
Okay.
And we asked her to take what she has and translate it over to English. And you see she actually does a really awesome job at using like I statements for pronouns and things like that. Compared to the second sample where it was just a free write and she was just kind of writing for about 10 minutes. And you can see it's not as tailored and not as edited. And you see that there's more struggles that she has with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in that second one that you referred to, in the second line, it says, and I play me and the sister.
Yeah.
Um, and so again, she's adding the word the or the in front of sister, where that's a common mistake where they add articles in front of words where they don't need one. Um, me and my sister instead of the sister.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you notice also, I guess on the, what would that be, the fourth line of that, she says, play in my house and a play. I think she was trying to communicate we play.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just another, it's not an article that she's kind of misusing, but it's misusing a pronoun. And I think she even skips over a pronoun in the third line. It says Leslie and go to my house.
Correct.
And I think she probably just skipped over I completely And then like you were talking about, she says the my house and put in that article.
Right. And so, sorry, I'm rereading that sentence.
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard because it's pretty choppy
Mm-hmm.
and she leaves out words, I think, not only just because maybe she didn't know how to translate them, um, but just she didn't know the proper ways to put them.
Right. Um, yeah, I think that's an important point to bring up to her that she is speaking in that case, and that Leslie and I, who else is going and having a discussion on including everyone who's in the sentence,
Yes.
that she's an important part of that sentence.
Yeah, because if she drops that, then it's like she's not in the story anymore. And we should probably, you're right, like talking with her and telling her, just, making sure to express all who is in the sentence and what the sentence is about.
Mm-hmm.
Let me write that down. And then I think also looking at the one where she was able to translate,
Uh-huh. I will go back into that one.
I I'm very, very limited in my Spanish like abilities.
Okay.
But when she says I have 9 years, I think that's pretty close to the translation of, you know,
Yeah. Um, I believe they use like tienes or tango for like
mhm.
I have, uh,
Yeah,
how many years they have. So that is pretty close translation across that she did there. So as we look at that piece, it's good to see that she has those Spanish skills
yeah,
that are transferring over. There are a few places, like you said, I have 9 years where that transfer is an incorrect transfer.
yeah.
But I think um, the majority of her transfers are positive and she can build on those transfers, um, and that those transfers aren't necessarily a deterrent to her writing.
Yeah, she's still able to, you know, communicate in an effective way. It now just needs to be tailored a little bit, I guess, so it's a little more proper.
Mm-hmm.
But she's getting her message across.
Yeah.
And then even, I'm totally blanking on the word. Um, I guess in like kind of the second paragraph, it says exit play and exit the park with my brother and her friends. So you can tell she's using the wrong pronoun there.
Uh-huh. My
Um,
brother and his friends.
yeah. But then I don't exactly know why she'd be using exit, the play. So stop it. I'm trying to think of a word that would translate into exit.
Um, I don't know why she might be using exit there, but if she's talking about leaving, she
Mm-hmm.
may have picked up a exit sign from somewhere at the school, by the door that when you leave,
That's very true.
there's an exit. So that might be just her picking up from her environment in that case. Um, and she used exit above in the first paragraph as well.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a vocabulary word that she has worked on in her group with Melanie or
Yeah.
um, Amy.
Yeah, I would agree with that because that exposure is what's leading her to kind of jump back to that word to express what she's thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess how do you think it would be a good idea to address, just some forms of pronouns like her and his and talking about how they relate to different I guess genders.
Different genders. Something that we could do with her as a next step is there are those gender identifiers in Spanish.
Yeah.
So discussing, la niña, el niño, how there is the la and the l and how those are different, and making that connection with that you do that in Spanish already. In English, you do the same thing with the pronouns, that your brother is the masculine form, so it would be his, and then the feminine side, reverse of that is her. So making that connection to her native L1 Spanish, because
Uh-huh.
you have those um, masculine and feminine sides of things, and then taking that to the transferring that to the L2 English.
I think that is a very good idea. And that, would you suggest that it would be like an explicit, you have a sit down conversation with?
I would think so that would be an explicit discussion with her, and you might find that there are another couple students in the class that might need that reinforcement too and make that connection,
Yeah.
and make a quick small group. It wouldn't have to be anything major, but make a quick small group to address that does happen with pronouns in English as it does in Spanish.
Yeah. I agree with that. Um, I guess to give you a little, since you know her, it's kind of hard, but um, we do have to go over some of the can-do descriptors. And I guess
Absolutely.
with her listening can-do descriptors, she's able to point to like pictures and phrases and words, after like giving oral directions too. And she can follow some one-step directions for the most part, and especially based on classroom routines. Um, and then content-based pictures and objects, she can point to them from descriptions and arrange pictures or objects to depending on like the oral information. So at the beginning, at least, I see that she's very low in her listening abilities on the WIDA can-do descriptors.
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't know how she performs in math, but I think it's just because some of the words that we use in our classroom are, how wonders it changes vocabulary words every week, and exposing her to them and then really having her build connections with the words and the meanings,
Mm-hmm.
definitely it takes a while.
Right.
And I feel like it would benefit her. And we try and incorporate, words for multiple weeks until she really understands it. But just the rapid pace of like introducing about 10 vocab words a week can be a little hard
Right.
on her. Um, but then, when she's able to speak, she's able to, put together words or phrases and communicate them, along with if she has, visual representation, she's able to,
Mm-hmm.
be able to, describe what she sees. And she can ask some pretty simple everyday questions, even if they're like content based questions and facts.
Mm-hmm.
Also, she can describe pictures and stuff with very choppy, like worded sentences.
Mm-hmm.
Then, with her reading in English, because it's, like I said before, she's very fluent in Spanish, but
Right.
English, she is able to match words with concepts that are drawn in pictures. And she's able to see words and that are close to the words in Spanish and see them as cognates.
Mm-hmm.
And but that leads to like, you don't want, if it's a false cognate, you don't want her to think that word means something different.
Yeah.
um she's able to make the sounds and symbols very, very easily. And like I was saying, with English, she's able, mostly her reading skills stop at, matching the illustrated words and phrases. But she is able to communicate her understanding through writing a lot more of, labeling pictures and making lists and using word banks, um, and also just drawing her ideas and, copying words and phrases. And she's able to use sentence strips to move and put events that happen in stories in order. So yeah, that's I guess just a little more of her can-do descriptors.
And I see the same things in math and science.
Yeah.
Have her, she's able to um, match ideas to pictures and cutouts and that kind of thing. I agree that in math, the visual representation helps her a lot. And because numericals are the same, she's able to do that. She might not always have the English word for the numerical, but she knows that she can try it in Spanish and then um, get the correct answer. I'm focused on, at that point in time, the correct math that she's doing, and then we can build in that English piece after the math is done, of going over some of those numerical words.
I guess we can, now that we've talked about that, jump back to just for.
Great job directing, by the way.
Oh yes, sorry.
Make sure that we get that.
I was going to start off with it, but then I completely spaced. So
I would have spaced them out. So I think we'll get better at this as we go too.
Yeah, and I think it's also us sharing her as a student. It allows us to really, we see how she does perform day to day. But with what?
Go ahead.
With her her first piece where it's edited and the second piece where it's not edited, do you think it's a skill to have her write and then translate over?
I think that's great because she's getting her ideas down in Spanish first, so that she's not focused on the L2 at that point in time. She's just focused on writing and writing to the prompt. That in this case was herself, so she was very familiar with that. I can only imagine how more difficult that would be if we said, that she's writing about a story that she read, let's say, and we didn't give her that opportunity to get her ideas down in her L1, how that would hinder, because she would be focusing on things in English that she would maybe lose some of her ideas of what actually happened in the story. So I think that's a great thing to have her do, that you can take in one language your L1 Spanish and transfer that and translate that into your English writing after that. And it might not be a skill that we use or an idea that happens every writing time, but incorporate that in some pieces is a good idea.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting because she usually will do her free write in Spanish, and every now and then we'll ask her to do her free write in English, and she always looks a little intimidated by it. Kind of like you were saying, because I bet she doesn't have the ability. I'm sure she does have the ability, but it's harder for her to collect and express her, her ideas when she doesn't have that time to really think through it. It's hard for any child, to can't just say write a, 3-paragraph paper without having them plan and edit their ideas.
Something that I see in her writing that sometimes I don't hear from her orally in the classroom is she says, I like play and go to the school and play with him. That go to the school, there's times throughout the day where she'll ask to use the bathroom and she'll say, I go bathroom, and she won't say to the bathroom. So that's an interesting piece, that before school she added that to the, that determiner with the article, and instead, and recognizing that that's a place, but sometimes she doesn't do that orally. That a bathroom, the bathroom is a place where we would say to the school.
Yeah, yeah, that is interesting because I
I
see
don't
the
know if you
same
hear
thing
that too.
in my class. I see every now and then she says she won't say like she just says go to bathroom. Um, and that's odd that she kind of juggles between it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure it's more of just what she remembers at the moment that she's speaking.
Right.
How she I'm trying to type it.
Oh no, you're good. Thanks.
Okay. Um, so I guess as a next step for her, I think some you know, explicit conversations to just kind of reinforce the ideas because I think she understands the ideas of pronouns and how to use them because we see her using it in some of her work. You know, we see her have the beginning stages of incorporating them. But then I think a little more support and explicit instruction would allow her of just, more opportunities to practice and refine her skills.
Yeah, I definitely think some direct instructions on the determiners before nouns. Bowles gave the book like an articles, a cat, or the demonstrative that book, the number one reason, possessive my class,
Yeah.
my brother, my room, or the quantifier each problem is the example that Foles gives in the text, and really giving some explicit lessons on when to use those based on the word. Um, because even in that first same piece, she has I like the school, but then she says at the bottom, go to the school.
Yeah.
So go to the school, that's fine, but I like school. Um, and that noun has changed the actual meaning in the sentence. Um, the physical school playground here in the bottom and at the top, going to school and learning. I like school.
Yeah.
Mm.
And talking about the physical and more of the idea kind of.
So I think that would be definitely some good next steps for Karen in her writing.
Yeah.
And this is good for me to see as well so that I could push her in these same ideas during writing about science and
Mm.
writing um, answers to problems in math when she's, asked to do a story problem.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Because you're right. I'm looking at her, I guess, on the first piece, the third kind of paragraph, which really is just kind of sentences. But she says, I like my room. In the room, I am sleeping. And then play in my phone.
Mm-hmm.
She she's able in the room, she's able to express where she's going,
Mm-hmm.
but then she's not expressing how she's sleeping in the room, I feel very accurately.
Mm-hmm. I think that's good that she is showing those possessive determiners, my room and my phone, and
Uh-huh.
using those possessive determiners correctly in that case, which is good that she has done that.
And then in my phone, even though it should more be on my phone,
Mhm.
she is showing that she possesses the phone and that it is hers.
Correct.
Instead of
Well,
saying like in me phone kind of thing.
I mean, in those,
Hmm. Now I'm actually looking on the other sheet and it's saying, my favorite friend is Leslie and play me and the sister. I'm wondering if she's saying her sister instead of Leslie's sister. Me and, well, I mean like Leslie's sister as her sister. She plays with Leslie and her sister.
Oh, when she says me and the sister,
Yeah.
yeah, I would probably agree with you in that case.
And then maybe she meant then Leslie and I go to my house. And in my house we play. Yeah, I think just after looking at her writing, even though when she's able to give time to translate over, there needs to, just be more direct instructions.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and also maybe I can be providing her with more graphic representation of pronouns because I realize I don't do that very well in the classroom. I do a lot of like, graphic representations, but I don't have anything specifically on pronouns.
That's a great idea. That would be a good next step for her and probably some others in the class.
Yeah.
That those pronouns and making sure she understands when we use those pronouns
Hmm.
directly, and giving her those that background knowledge of exactly when and why we use those.
Yeah.
So we're not just giving her those typical "that's not correct" and not giving her the reasoning why.
Yeah. Now, I don't know what you do um in math and stuff, but I know when she asks kind of like going back to the bathroom
Hmm.
situation when she's, like go to bathroom or like leaves off some things. How do you correct her? I know I kind of just say, yes, you can go to the bathroom. Um, I don't, I guess, correct her in a way that is like telling her that she, mispronounced it. I more just say it how it should be said. How would you say you?
I most of the time do that as well, just so that because a lot of times she's in front of another student saying
Yeah.
that, and so I don't want to um, kind of call her out right then and there. There have been a couple times where it's been kind of just her, and I've had her say it correctly so that, you know, can I go to the bathroom? Uh,
Uh-huh.
I probably have not done a good enough job in explaining exactly why we say it that way
Hmm.
and giving her that.
Well, I think what's hard is, she's just such a sweetheart and she'll say yes, like she understands, but I feel like she's able to listen a lot and take in what we're saying, but it takes a lot for her to process information.
Hmm.
Um, that I wonder because I know like when we're writing and stuff, when I'm like correcting her writing, when it's in English and stuff, I I'm able to break it down and like go very slow with her.
Hmm.
Um, and she just nods and says yes, like she understands, but I fear that she doesn't understand all the time.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. And with the nouns that she's even using, it seems like she uses them in effective ways. For the nouns and like of places, and so she knows how to introduce things as like my house, the school, the park. Um, so she does have determiners in front of some of her nouns that are accurate.
Yeah, and I think that comes from her strong background in Spanish, and those nouns being very similar. Spanish has similar nouns to English, so she's able to do make a positive transfer in that regard. Also, the possessive determiner, she's able to make a positive transfer. My brother um, my room, my phone, and in that regard, she's using those nouns correctly and making a positive transfer
Uh,
from that Spanish language.
let's see. What else should we have to talk about? Make sure we've kind of covered everything. If this will pull up. So I feel like we have talked about the can-do sample descriptors, and we've identified the grammar errors in the samples, and then we've given instructional suggestions. And I think it's a side note that's really good about sharing her as a student and us being on the same page is that we can provide that reinforcement all the time, as much as we can. I guess, are there any other suggestions that you would like to give on either her writing that you've noticed that we might have missed, or some ideas?
For her to be a first year second language learner of English, to me, this is, we're working through the second half of the year. This is producing really pretty strong writing for that development of language and where she's. I'm impressed with her, and I seeing this sometimes let her. I see in math that she relies a little bit more on the Spanish, and I've allowed that a little bit because she is that first year, but maybe pushing her a little bit in that regard to take those risks and those next steps of trying it in English because I do think she has some of those skills.
Yeah, I would agree with that a lot. I compare her to like some of our other students that we share, that this might be their second year or even third year kind of thing. She's progressed very far, that she's even comparable to some of the second year English language learners in our classrooms. And granted, they're all individual students, and they all have areas of weakness and areas of strength that need to be, addressed. But you see her excelling in some things that others aren't excelling at yet. So it's just encouraging to see, I guess.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah.
You think we did it correctly this week?
I hope so. I think I'm definitely going to have to go through and organize our notes a little bit, but I feel like we've seen I guess, the common patterns of her errors, and we've talked about some ways to try and address the errors in a positive way. So yeah, I think it's good.
Okay, so I mean, next time it'll be a little easier because we'll be used to the live hangout.
Yeah.
It still took me a little while to get logged in there. But next week I will provide the student sample and be the director and the note taker.
Awesome.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
In our rotation? And we'll just check in with Dr. W about and make sure that it's still okay.
Yeah.
This way.
Yeah, I think it worked really well. I think it helps that we're at the same school, so we have time to talk things through face to face. So
yeah, I agree.
Alrighty, I will get this posted.
Okay.
And I will see you tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good. Have a good day.
Good one. You too.
Thanks, Glenna.
Bye.
Bye.